Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is William Hughes. I am a PhD student at Indiana Tech, also known as Indiana Institute of Technology, in the Global Leadership Program. Tonight, I'll be discussing my life, my career, my research goals, and a few other things too, as we go along. But I'm doing this from a PowerPoint, but I'm going to be talking during the slides as well. Okay, hold on. Oh, so I have share screen on. Can everybody see see the slides? See the slide?
No.
No? Okay, hold on.
You know how to do the share screen?
Yeah. I have share screen, yeah. Oh, I got it. There we go.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the presentation I was originally planned for Fuller University school students who are part of the Office of Disability Services, and we've had a few guests show up, so we're going to include them. And so we're going to start from that point. So for my notes, cameras can be on and off or off as your preference. I respect your wishes, whatever you want to do. There's a lot to talk about, but I'm happy to answer questions after the presentation. You can also use the chat feature to ask questions. I'll try to answer them after the presentation. I've learned that my experiences are going to be different than yours, and you are free to disagree with a lot of what I'm saying. A lot of what I'm saying is my opinion. I'm open to debate and discussion. I welcome that. This is my paid Zoom link, so don't worry about time limits. The free Zoom link is a 40-minute time limit. I don't have to worry about that. And copies of these slides have been given to Mary Burns and Alessandra Colasaco of the Fordham University Office of Disability Services. I can offer them to you as well once we're completed here. My contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So I never attended Fordham University, but I'm going to mention a few people that have. First, my late uncle earned a BA in accounting from Fordham and was very connected to the university for the rest of his life. With that in mind, I'm dedicating tonight's video to him and to my late mother, who passed away last year. Both people passed away last year. My mother passed away in August. My uncle passed away about a year ago this time. And since we're dealing with Fordham University, I'm honoring both people. My mother never attended Fordham, but that's besides the point. My father-in-law, who is my father-in-law earned a BA and MA in theology from Fordham. My wife, who is Mary Powell, is a clinical psychologist with private practice. She's also written a textbook on social work. She earned her MSW and PhD in social work from Fordham. She has quite a bit of credentials. She's been teaching in the School of Social Service for about 15 years, 17 years now. Yeah, something like that. It's been a long time. She's been, and we pretty much the entire time I've known her. So she completed her PhD in 2018. I was there for the final dissertation defense. It was a great day. Very, very good thing. She's doing very well with her practice. Oh, sorry. I apologize. And then most importantly, my wife and I were married at Fordham University Chapel at Rose Hill in 2010. So we've been together for 13 years. It'll be 13 and a half years on Valentine's Day. And if my wife would like to add to this, I'm happy to hear her. Okay. So I have a personal statement. This is my personal belief. If autism is on a spectrum, which autism spectrum disorder, it's what it's the full name of it. And if autism is on a spectrum, then so are talents. Now, today I'm going to be talking about autism, neurodiversity, and disability. A lot of what I'm going to be speaking about, especially in the third part, can be used with any population, can be referred to with any population. I think that's very important. So that's my agenda is an overview of my life on the autism spectrum and career before 2013, because it sets up what happened after 2013. I'm going to also mention 5 companies that I think right now are great for neurodivergent people to work with. These are my opinions. I will be talking a bit about my intended research for my PhD in global leadership at Indiana Tech, and I'll have time for questions and answers. Okay, so start with 1988. I was told that I would never work as an adult and received SSI benefits, supplemental security insurance. I was told point blank, never going to work as an adult. They didn't even know what the situation was. They said other, basically, was they determined it was other. So I don't know. So in 1996, the internet became popular. I started playing around with Microsoft Office, became proficient in that program, and become an administrative assistant for temp firms, and eventually passed the A+ exam to show my ability to build and fix desktop computers. I've had a thing with technology for a long time. If Mary, my wife, will verify this, Mary will verify this, and I have a big thing with technology. I'm able to do a lot of things with computers, and it's kind of I've been a thing of mine for about 30 years, almost 30 years now. I worked for a public relation firm as a computer maintenance and installation person, and I helped with their Y2K protection. For those of you who don't know, Y2K was a thing in about 1999. Computers only had the date up to 1999. They rolled over to 00. They were worried that computers were going to crash, so we had to do a patch job. It was really kind of a funny thing. It turns out it didn't matter. Everything was fine. I then got brought in as a temp by Citigroup, which was supposed to be a 3 to 4 week stint, calculating how shipments were getting delivered. They had just changed from one service to another, DHL to UPS, and I was kept on for 6.5 years, eventually becoming an information security officer and attaining the CISSP certification, Certified Information Security System Professional Certification. It's a very hard exam. It's 5 hours. It's all written out, so you have to answer essay questions. But the highlight for me with that was I was sent in 2002, I was sent to London to train a team on our software. Spent a week in London, got to teach the team, got to work with the team afterwards, and we got along quite well. I actually worked with the team pretty much till I left in 2006. So in 2003, my mother sent me a copy of an article she'd seen in the New York Times Sunday magazine about Asperger's syndrome. It was called The Little Professor. She said she highlighted the parts she thought were relevant. And there was more highlight than white space. I thought I was reading parchment. That's how yellow this thing was. I mean, seriously, this thing was seriously yellow. I decided, let me check this out. Let me see what there's something going on here. And she's right. And it turns out I was informed I had this condition. Now, you'll notice one thing. I do not use the word diagnosis when describing my condition, because to me, diagnosis suggests that I have a contagious disease. I disagree with that. It's a condition that I live with. It's part of who I am. It's not something anybody can catch. Nobody, I can assure you, you cannot catch autism from spending time with me. I've been with my wife for 18 years now, and well, she hasn't caught autism yet, so it's a good bet she never will. So in 2006, my department was outsourced, so I was out of a job, but I had an opportunity to go back to college in 2010. So I returned to Hunter College, earned my BA in political science in 2012 while working in the Office of Student Services. And I'm honored to mention that my former therapist for part of that time is here tonight. Miss Ann Akers is here tonight. I want to acknowledge her. I then attended Stony Brook University, went right from Hunter to Stony Brook, earned an MA in political science in 2013. It was a 1-year program, was kind of a quick pace. I tell you this funny story. I did my master's thesis in 3 weeks, start to finish. It was over 60 pages. It was just one of those things. I just started typing. It's something I've picked up on over the years. It's like I can do 40 pages in a weekend on occasion. I'm doctoral. Mary has seen me typing furiously at night or in the afternoons on the weekends. It's amazing. It's just one of those things. I just hit something and just start running with it. So in the fall of 2013, my therapist made a call to a fledgling organization that's called Specially Sterna. They're still around. They're a great organization if you're looking for work. And they're dedicated to the training and hiring of autistic adults, mainly in STEM. We're going to get to the good and bad of that a little bit later on. So they were starting a project with an organization called Towers Watson, White Plains, New York. And I completed the training and worked as a third-party contractor in the spring of summer of 2014. I was offered a position with the company in their marketing department. I was interviewed and hired in September 2014. Basically, I had to sit out a month because there was logistics related, going from being third party to working for the company directly. And it was just a matter of how that, of who was going to, how that was all going to work out. So I managed to get through that. So in April 2015, the then CEO of the company gave a speech at the United Nations about the project and hiring autistic people. Trust me, they rode this horse until it died. They went all out. So literally the next day, I was approached by Inc.com about doing an interview about my experiences with the project, and the interview is available online to this day. It was an exciting time. I was getting my name in print and telling the story, and it was really the first time I publicly discussed my being autistic. And from there, as you can guess, I pretty much have had to say I'm autistic because one, it especially starts on my resume. They are the ones who paid my salary for for time I was with them. Therefore, I have to list them. So you look up my name, Specially Sterna, boom, there's the article, there's what Specially Sterna is. They're now known as Specially Sterna USA. And as I said, they really are a good organization, and they've gotten a lot better, believe it or not, with hiring practices and what they're trying to accomplish. I think that's really good. It's good and bad. So in 2021, I wrote an article I self-published on LinkedIn about my hopes for a neurodiverse community. The terms have changed. Neurodivergent is now the term that's used. It was picked up by Canadian Business Journal and published on the internet. And that article is also online. That one was really a surprise because I'll tell this story. I published it on March 31st on LinkedIn. I got contacted in the afternoon of April 1st thinking April Fool's joke. And I had to contact people who worked with the Canadian market. I contacted the head of Canadian marketing and said, have you ever heard of this person? And they said, yeah, it's an honor to get into this, to get published by them. And I said, okay, thanks for letting me know. And sure enough, the COVID was around. Toronto got shut down the week they published it. So there are about 33,000 copies in print because that's their circulation. That was their circulation. But at the same time, Toronto had a COVID spike and they shut down right as they were publishing it. So I don't know if anybody actually saw the written version. I know that I know that it's online. It's been online ever since. So went back, got an MS in data analytics from the University of Maryland Global Campus in 2021. I had planned on earning a PhD in data science. That was my original plan. But one night, early 2022, I was thinking about where my opportunities to advance in my career would come from. And then I started thinking about where any autistic person's opportunities were going to come from. I thought, PhD. I thought, PhD leadership. Let's see if I can find something. And I literally I was up about 2 a.m. looking online at PhD programs, and I found one at the Indiana Institute of Technology in Global Leadership, which is a private university in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but all the classes are online except for an immersion weekend. I had to go out there. I actually have to go out there in April, and I have to go out there again in the fall this year. Then I have to go back out in the spring of next year. Their process is, rather than comprehensive exams, you have to do a qualifying paper. In order to get to the qualifying paper, you have to do a certain number of credits through the immersion weekend. So I have to do that. I couldn't do it last year for logistical reasons. Unfortunately, in the fall, my mother had gotten sick and she passed away. Mary had issues as well that we had to take care of. So it was an unfortunate situation, but everything is fine now. So I ended up staying with Willis Towers Watson. They changed their name. They merged with a company called Willis. They became Willis Towers Watson. They're now kind of known as WTW. I stayed with them until April of 2022. I went to a staffing firm, stayed there for 5 months, and then got hired by a law firm, Stradley Ronan, as their CRM data steward in November of 2022. Been there ever since. And the job is currently managing their CRM database, but I expect the role will be expanding into data analytics and data standardization in 2024. These are important items. This is part of what a data steward does. They set policy for how data is presented, what data is used, how to do analytics. It's a really, really, really big job, and it's going to be opening up quite a bit next year, and this year, sorry. Okay, so let's go to the 5 companies in the USA, or my opinion, for neurodivergent employees that I think are the best. And these 5, and these are based on what I've seen online about their programs and how they do hiring. First is SAP, and they are the originals. They were the first company to do a neurodiversity hiring initiative, and they were really autistic hiring initiative in 2013. Mine, the one I mentioned in White Plains, was the second one that happened. So they're committed to having 1% of their workforce coming from the neurodivergent community. They have that in writing. They've set that out. Full credit. They do believe in what they're doing. I actually have connected with people on LinkedIn about that. Number 2 is Deloitte, which has one of the longest running programs, and the one most likely to come in conversation. It's funny. I talk to people that know about these things, and Deloitte always comes up. They're a very good accounting organization, great firm. Number 3 was Bank of New York Mellon, and this is via Specialty Stern USA. They work with them pretty much exclusively, and they recently did an initiative for an entry-level position with salary very close to mine. I'm not kidding. My jaw dropped with how close it was. I mean, it was like, if I was looking for a job, I would have applied. That's how close this was. And it's well worth looking into. They're really committed. EY, Ernst & Young, is another one that's like Deloitte. They're not as well known. They don't come up as often, but they're pretty well known. I like them. I like what they're trying to do. And then number 5, this was a surprise pick, but this came up late last year. I actually saw something on LinkedIn about it. I kind of went to a bit of a rabbit hole, got more information about it. And it's Wells Fargo. They have a 99% retention rate, a wide variety of jobs, and strong commitment to their program. They really believe what they're doing. And they're committing to make sure such an initiative won't be necessary in the future because people will be able to get in on their own talents directly. I think that's very important. I love what I saw with them. They've really jumped out at me. And again, this is not in any particular order, by the way. This is just the 5 that best come to my mind. There are other companies that are very good. I think there are plenty of organizations that do have neurodiversity hiring initiatives that are really, really good. I think they're not as big as what you see here. They're not as well known. They're not. There's Microsoft is very well known, for example, but they also have. They basically are still. They said, I actually had a thing with them last year. I asked them about you've been doing this for 10 years. Has anybody progressed in their careers, or what's the progression rate? And their response was, we're still learning. And I thought to myself, well, if you're still learning, I could have gotten 2 PhDs by the time in 10 years. But they're a large one. IBM's a large one. JP Morgan Chase. So let's talk about my intended research. It has 3 major components. First, and this is the qualifying paper, what do corporate and organizational leaders really think about hiring neurodivergent people? And I say corporate and organizational because I'm talking public and private sector employers. I think there's some differences between the two, just my opinion. I think the current research shows most of the C-suite individuals are less than 100%, have less than 100% favorable opinion. There's one study in the United Kingdom that's said that less than half of the leaders they surveyed said they even consider hiring from our community. And what drives me crazy about that, I find the United Kingdom is way ahead of us, way ahead of us as far as what they have to offer in terms of hiring initiatives. There's a program called Neurodiversity in Business run by a gentleman by the name of Dan Harris. And he has gotten a lot of big companies in the United Kingdom to commit to hiring neurodivergent people. I'd like to see that come to the United States. He and I have been in communication about that possibility. I mean, if they do come to the United States, I will certainly be on the volunteer list for that because that certainly matches well with my research. However, there was a survey, there was a study done by students in a program similar to what Fordham has. Interestingly enough, College Staten Island was one of the colleges, one of the schools where students were asked about this, and they have a wide variety of fields that are interested in, but they're not worried about things like writing or academics, but they shouldn't be. It amazes me that there are a lot of strong academics in the neurodivergent community, and that's something I'm really going to look into, because I find that we're overrepresented in terms of advanced degrees, STEM degrees, the big ones. So we're really overrepresented there, and it kind of interests me that you can come in with all these credentials, and at the same time we do not get the opportunities to advance in our careers. And I'm kind of trying to balance that, figure out why that is. Part of it is because we think differently, we act differently. I'm sorry, that's wrong. We're going to be changing. I hope to change that mindset. So based on that information, I would ask what they think about the best approach to hiring those in the neurodivergent community. And I thought about this, and I have an idea where you connect students from the new and recent graduate programs and organizations. So for example, my former company, Willis Harris Watson, has such a program. They introduce people who've recently earned a degree to what types of jobs the firm has to offer. By connecting them with programs such as the one at Fordham and other schools, any other school, there's a tremendous talent pool that can be developed and sourced and connected with the appropriate jobs. And I know somebody at Fordham who works in the Willis Harris Watson program. I worked with her in marketing, and she's a Fordham alum. So, that's a good thing to have as a personal contact, I think. But there's also so many good schools. I mean, my alma mater, Hunter College, has a big program for autistic students that I think is really taken off. And it wasn't around when I was there. I got out 2012. I'm sorry, folks. My thing keeps moving along. I'm not even touching anything. But yeah, I think it's a key point. I think it's good to have these connections, because that way, if you know you have all this talent that's available, you can really come up with some great people, some really talented people. So number 2, a new way of hiring neurodivergent talent that can be applied to all new hires. This is where I say any disabled person, any marginalized member of the community, any new hire. Seriously. And there's 3 points. First is hiring based on talent rather than condition. Now, one of the things that neurodiversity hiring initiatives get wrong is that they hire because you're neurodivergent. They don't, not all, some of them do, some of them are better than others, but there has to be something where yes, you have the talent to do the job. Otherwise, why are you here? I can tell you that it's gotten better in 10 years. But there's still a long way to go. I think there's too often they consider hiring because you're neurodivergent, you're a member of the neurodiversity community. I think there needs to be a change there. I think the other big thing is they tend to stereotype what jobs we do. It's either STEM, something with computers, for example, or it's something with repetitive tasks. And I'm sorry, folks. It may work for me. It doesn't work for everybody else. You go on LinkedIn, you can look up people who are neurodivergent. They're in virtually every field imaginable. I know of it. One of my dearest friends from years ago was an autistic woman who not only had a JD, she was an attorney, she had a PhD in psychology. That's a tough double to pull off. And I know of only one other person who got a JD and a PhD, and she just left my firm, the firm I work for. And she's neurotypical. And her choice for the PhD was in neuroscience. So that's a totally, that's the type of thing where you got to start saying to yourself, listen, we represent a lot of different things. I mean, I've met autistic people who barely got out of high school. I worked with them, especially Sterno at Towers Watson White Plains. I had 2 people in the program that had bachelor's in engineering, and one of them had a second bachelor's in psychology. And I was asking myself, what are you doing here? You got a bachelor's in engineering, for crying out loud. That's a tough one. You got my respect. And and people were looking at me because I had a master's. I'm thinking, okay, I've also done this type of work before. That's how I was able to use it to my advantage. So the second point is, or B, is mentoring starting on day one. This is something I borrow from my law firm. The incoming attorneys are mentored by senior attorneys about what to do, how law works, how the systems work in the firm. They find out about promotion opportunities. They find out about what to watch out for, who to watch out for, even like good places to eat, for example, for lunch. I mean, that can happen. Or if you want to take a client out to dinner or something, that's a perfect situation. Now, I think that's something that can come into anybody who gets hired deserves a mentor, deserves to be speaking to someone who's a senior person in the department, can learn, can work with the new hire about how to handle how to handle work, how to handle boss, how to handle different situations, and eventually, you know, career development, career advancement will go, and so on. But the third point, and see, this is a big one for me, is there must be a next level for those who seek it. I say, if you want to stay in your job, you want to keep doing what you're doing, that's great. I respect that. Don't ever let me tell you what to do. But if you're in a job for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years, and you're asking yourself, what do I got to do to get promoted? And the answer is they don't give you a clear answer. What are you supposed to do? I mean, you could stay there and work it out and show what you can do, or you can start looking for a new job. I think people I think neurodivergent people are more willing to stay in the job. They have a sense of loyalty to the firm. I think there's a clear sense of loyalty, and there's good and bad involved in that. I think it's an individual decision though as to what you want, how you want to approach it. And this is based on something I call the educational vocational disconnect, where you can have a great background, but you're in a low level position simply because you're neurodivergent. Again, you got a degree in engineering. What are you doing? What's the deal? What's going on there? I couldn't figure that one out. But it's also people who have multiple master's degrees. I actually talked to somebody on LinkedIn who's a connection of mine who two master's degrees, multiple professional certifications, a cybersecurity expert, makes me look like a rank amateur. And he tells me point blank that he's dealing with people that are telling him that autistic people should never be considered for leadership roles. And I'm thinking, well, that's where I'm coming in. You're wrong. That's like, and the only thing that surprised me about him saying that was it didn't surprise me. It does not surprise me to hear this. It's crazy. Another thing that happens, and I point this out in the slide. Another thing that happens is a lot of us end up becoming self-employed. It allows us to set our own hours, regulate our conditions, and determine our own fates. And there's a lot of successful people who do that. I think if, again, look on LinkedIn, I'm connected with a lot of people who are autistic or have ADHD or dyslexia, dyspraxia, the whole realm, the whole 9 yards. So it's something really big. And we're representing every field, every field. I know of it. I know of a current attorney who's autistic, and she's actually one of the best known attorneys in Florida. I follow her, but there's stereotypes that, again, we all we're good for STEM careers or repetitive tasks. So this policy, I think, is a win-win for organizations and any new hire. And the beauty of it is it shows that we're valued as an employee, we're welcome as employees, we're made to feel like we belong. And guess what? We're going to probably stay a lot longer if that's the case. I think that's how it's going to work. I think it will work very nicely. Apologize. But on top of that, it costs virtually nothing to do this. I mean, have you seen me put up $1? Have you seen me say anything that costs anything? No, it doesn't cost anything. And that's another thing. Talk about accommodations at work. Guess what? The costs are going to be zero, or less. Virtually everything is zero or less than $500 at most. But you don't have to spend money to make a person feel welcome. But the value is tremendous, and it's an opportunity that goes begging from organizations. So the third factor is the creation of a leadership development program geared towards neurodivergent people, run by neurodivergent people. This is my thing. And this is the foundation of my attended research. And I say with the right supports, we can be leaders of corporations and organizations without having to hide the conditions from day one. And this is masking. I don't think I don't think it should be a factor. I think if you come out and you say, I am autistic, or I have ADHD, or I have another condition, that should be held against you. Your work is your value. I think that's important. And what I tend to do is I'll start with volunteers via LinkedIn. I'll talk to them about willingness to participate in such a program. Something I have to consider is that because of things that are going on with affirmative action, that happened to affirmative action in the United States Supreme Court, I think also because there are movements, there are attacks on DEI programs right now, in particular programs geared towards women and people of color. There's arguments that everybody needs to have free access, and the problem is that we have too many people that opportunities are going to be taken away if they don't open up and it cheapens the value of the programs. Anyway, I think these programs are valuable to their audiences. I think they offer a lot of opportunity, and so what I've decided to do is instead I will do this as a private thing rather than ask for corporate sponsorship, because I think that's going to become an issue in the near future. I would not be surprised to see this type of the career development programs go before the Supreme Court, get shot down, given the nature of the court right now. I'm prepared for that. I was originally going to go with corporate sponsorship. I don't think that's the way to go anymore. So my program is going to be built around the following. First is resiliency theory. It's how well somebody overcomes adversity. First developed by Norma Garmezi with children whose parents passed away. So it's expanded to everyone who's faced adversity in some form or another, which is pretty much everybody on the planet. Our community has had many adversities overcome, so it's a great choice. I think it's a time to rise up how well we respond and come back. I use a reference to the great philosopher from Philadelphia, Rocky Balboa. It's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. And that's how winning's done. That's how I view it. It's not easy. I got to tell you, there have been times where I said, I wanted to quit, and I know what, I'm not doing it. I got too many things riding on this. Besides, Mary won't let me quit. And by the way, one thing I will point out, the wife's always right. So that's how I operate. That's how our marriage operates. Second item is servant leadership. And this was considered by Robert Greenleaf in 1970. It's built around serving those who follow you and combining their ideas with your own to create the best possible scenario. Now, there have been plenty of very eloquent servant leaders. I can think of Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi. If you're a Christian, Jesus Christ is considered the ultimate servant leader. For the Catholic Church, the Pope or any priest or such. I think, but it does focus more on how you work with others, how you serve others, rather than what you do for yourself. It's becoming bigger than just you, and it focuses on actions rather than words. So it's perfect for our community because our communication style may be different. We think differently, we speak differently, we act differently. It's a tough one, but this is the best approach for the community. Next thing is something called true inclusion. And basically I say, you're working with me, I don't care about your background, I don't care your skin color, your gender, what you identify as. Your opinion matters here. You're as important to me as anybody else on the team. You come in and you have an opinion on something, please bring it. I'm happy to hear it. And that's how we work. That's how we make things work. So something I found out recently in a Harvard Business Review article, Nordic countries use a combination of true inclusion and servant leadership. It's called discutera, or discussion. Basically, the leader hears everybody out, makes decisions based on what the discussion is. It can go, some people complain it goes a little bit too far, but I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect idea. I think listening to everybody is important. You have to listen to everybody. I mean, if you're coming in with with an idea, listen, I want to hear it. Maybe, maybe it's crazy, maybe it'll work. I'm here, I'm happy to listen. That's what I'm here for. So developing a community, and that's because one voice means nothing. I speak out, it means nothing. You get a million people speaking out, it means something. Working together, we can network together, we can build a common ground, we can build ideas, but we also can, we can also encourage each other to network with each other and then network outside the program as well. Networking is a big issue for me. I am considered the world's worst networker in my opinion. It's really, but I've learned, I've adapted. There are ways to do it. I think if you're networking within a community, it's great. And then the fifth and final point of that area is self-empowerment. And you need to be able to speak for yourself, and you need to create your own goals for the program. I can't tell you what to do. Not my place, not my job. My job is to encourage you to reach your own goals as you define them. You are the determiner of your own fate. You have to make that decision. And the program's also going to be built around something I created called armor. And that's replacing masking. To me, masking is hiding, it's a symbol, it's viewed as a symbol of weakness because you're hiding behind something. You're wearing armor, it's a symbol of power. It's a symbol of strength. That's how I'm viewing it. And for me, armor means accepting our strengths, recognizing our talents, managing our lives and careers, organizing ourselves and our community, and realizing our goals. To me, that's a strong sign of great strength. It shows what we're capable of. It shows what we can do as a community. I think this can also be applied again to any marginalized community, because I think people doubt themselves. They don't believe in what they can achieve. And guess what? You can make it happen. You can make it happen. So in addition, I've got a group on LinkedIn called Leadership and Neurodiversity, and building a website with the same domain, leadershipandneurodiversity.com. That's going to be opening up in March. They're going to be used to express my ideas, listing research articles, discussing my research as it progresses. You get the idea. I'm opening up in March because Neurodiversity Celebration Week is the middle of March. I'm planning around March 20th or 21st because I will be away for a couple of days the first part of that week. The research, I can't start officially until I complete my classes, which is going to be next summer, 2025. I can develop concepts that I mentioned earlier, build my literature review, which I'm already doing. Believe me, it's going to be over 200 things, mainly on neurodiversity hiring rather than leadership, because what you're about to hear is amazing. And there are only 2 other researchers in PhD programs currently doing similar research. First is Nikita Williams. She's attending UNC Charlotte, working towards a PhD program in organizational leadership, and wrote a master's thesis on this subject. She's brilliant. I thought it was a masterpiece. I really thought this was great. It was done as a qualitative approach. I'm going to be probably doing mixed methods, combining qualitative and quantitative, because I think there are elements of both that need to be included. And then there's a second person named Zuzana Misko, who's attending Montclair State, working towards a PhD in clinical psychology. Her focus is more on people who are leaders already, who later identify as neurodivergent. And I still think it's relevant. I think it's great that they're doing that. And they're both graduates of a master's program at Montclair State University and different stages of doctoral programs. Roughly, Ms. Williams is about the same point I am. She and I started at the same time. We've all connected on LinkedIn. Do not be surprised if in the future the 3 of us do a collaborative project, because I think we're going to be, because we got great approaches. Ms. Williams loves my idea of armor. I like what she's got going, talking about. It's all good. Okay, so how to contact me? Through my LinkedIn profile, or at my business address, whughes@stradley.com. I'm active on Upnotch, which is a peer group that mentors each other, and there's a neurodiversity community on that site. I think it's really helpful. It's because we help each other. We work together. I have a YouTube channel called Leadership and Neurodiversity, where I practice on my presentations and what will eventually be my dissertation defense in 2026, or 2027. I don't know yet. And then starting in March 2024, I expect to have the Leadership and Neurodiversity website go live. I'm figuring March 20th. I pretty much have it lined up. I just have to put out the first main article for that, and I have to type that up. I can probably do that over a weekend. So here's my takeaways. I think what people should take away. First, we're a large and growing community. It said 1 in 5 are neurodivergent. 1 in 5. Think about it, 20%. The way I see it, you work with 50 people, you probably have a few people who are. If you got 100, you definitely have a few people that are. If you have 200, now you have a few people that are. You probably have at least 1 or 2 that are outspoken about it. In my firm, I'm the outspoken one. I'm very open about it. My team gets it. My, people outside get it. It's going well, and they understand also I'm in a PhD program. So, and we're represented in all fields, seriously, all of them. If you have 1 in 5, guess what? You probably encounter them on a daily basis, encounter us on a daily basis. But also, this is very important. Our experiences may differ, but our opportunities can be different too. You define how you want to do it. You define your own goals. You define how it goes, or how things happen. And we deserve the opportunity to develop our careers how we choose to do it. It's our choice. We make the moves. You don't get to tell. I don't think a company should have to pigeonhole us in a certain role. I think we should be able to say, you know what, let's talk about this. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about other possibilities. And this is very important to me, the final takeaway. Current methods of career development and advancement are not neurodivergent friendly. I think there is a sense of hostility towards neurodivergent people if you want to advance. There's a lot of literature I've read that can suggest that, and I wish that wasn't the case. So I want to thank you all for coming. This has been great. I'm happy to answer questions. If you want to ask questions, be my guest.
Oops. Why don't you take down the slides?
Oh, yes, sure. Okay, sorry. So I will take questions. I'm happy to hear it.
I'll make some comments if that's okay.
Go right ahead, shoot.
Yeah, well, I'm Dr. Mary Powell. I'm William's wife. I'm an adjunct faculty at Fordham in the MSW program. I'm a psychotherapist, and I've worked with autistic people most certainly. And I think the takeaway also, if you're neurodiverse or know people who are neurodiverse, that a big point here is that just because you have some sort of severe mental illness or disability does not mean you can't be as successful as every other person you know. Okay, I know people and have treated people and have taught people with severe mental illnesses, and they're unable to disclose it, but they had the courage to pursue quote unquote normal lives. So if anyone here is neurodiverse or knows somebody who's neurodiverse, don't think for a second that individuals who are disabled in severe ways, disabled if you even want to use that word, can't be just as successful as everybody else, if not more. So my husband has come very far in his career, in his life. And I'm also happy that I read recently, someone wrote, let's not, therapists, clinicians, let's not force them to be neurotypical. Let's let them be neurodiverse, whatever it is for them. Let's not try to get them into, neurotypical ways of being if that doesn't work for them. And I think that's where a lot of advocacy is coming into play. So yeah, I'm totally down with, I'm going to be who I'm going to be. And I'm so glad that there's still stigma against neurodiverse people for sure. But unlike my husband's time and in my time, there was nothing on autism or Asperger's or anything like that. I mean, there was now at least there's an interest in, and it's being looked at more positively and sometimes as a strength. It's sometimes stereotypical, like, oh, well, autistic people can do the computer, so I want to hire them, because they're good with computers or whatever. I'm just glad this is being brought up. And again, just for any clinicians here, let's not force them into neurotypical ways of being. Let them be neurodiverse, So that's what I was thinking about.
Okay, I have a question that was asked for me, and I think this is good. What kind of advice do you have for students that wish to enter sectors of healthcare, such as medicine or nursing, that require moments of sensory intensity, fluorescent lights, masks, etc., but are committed to the field despite these challenges? The good news is the Americans with Disabilities Act requires everybody to make accommodations, reasonable accommodations. And I know I actually spoke with an autistic doctor yesterday. So I happen to know that, yes, they are represented in medicine. I think if you do have some issues, you can always bring it up and discuss it with if you go to medical school, nursing school, whatever choice you make, you're free to. I think you can discuss accommodations that through their Office of Disability Services or Accessibility Service, depending on where you are. Every school is different. I think it's important to understand that you can achieve this. I think it's a great goal. I think we need more doctors, and there's a nurse and nurses. There's a shortage of nurses in the United States. I can tell you there's a shortage of doctors. I think bringing the opportunities into the neurodivergent community, I think it's great. And I think simply being able to ask for accommodations is a key. Being willing to take, and I think every school will be willing to do that. I think any school that's not willing to work with you on that, you shouldn't be there. You should go somewhere where you will be appreciated. I think that's I think that's paramount to success, and that applies to any advanced program. If let's say you want to go to law school, you want to go to graduate school, you want to go into social work, guess what? You have a right to ask for accommodations at school social services for them. I'm sure that they will work with you. That what I actually had an accommodation in my program in data analytics where I basically said no group projects. I said I feel very uncomfortable in group projects, but there was one time where it was absolutely essential to the class, and I said, okay, I'll do it. No problem. I'll manage. I managed. I got through it. But that's a case where they said it was essential to the class. So there was another case where it wasn't essential, and I was able to get it and not have to do it. But that's the key. You have to be very aware. You have to know what you need. And sometimes the problem is you don't even, I'll be honest with you, there are many of us who don't know what we need until it comes up. Many of us are unaware of what we need or even how to ask. So yes, it's a very big difference now. I think things are very different between when I went to Hunter College, and I went in two different periods. I went in 1985 and 86, and then I went back in 2010, and it was quite different. The situations were quite different between the two. I think there was a lot of, and I think it's a very clear idea. That I think it's a very good idea that that what you're uncomfortable with, and say, listen, I'm uncomfortable with this. How can we work around it? Is there a way we can work around that? And I think that's a very valid point. I think it's very important. I'm going to type this
Thank
in.
you. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to have to jump off.
No problem, man.
I really was really interesting, and
thank you.
Would love to hang out a little longer, but
sure.
I'll see you soon.
Okay, I understand. No problem.
Right.
Take care.
So long. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so what you were just talking about earlier with the whole asking for accommodations and everything in school, I was wondering how you would suggest, like, in the workplace, say you've already gotten that job, how would you suggest we approach employers about those accommodations?
Talk about that. You have every right to talk to a manager about accommodations. They have to give it to you if it's reasonable.
Yeah.
And virtually every single accommodation is no cost or under $500.
Okay.
And they are legally required to give it as long as it's reasonable. Otherwise, they're in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act,
Mhm.
and they can get serious trouble for that.
Yeah.
I know that even things like interviews, you have a right to ask for a different approach to interviews. You can do because you might have to face a group. They typically might do a group interview, and you might realize, hey, I don't want to interview with 3, 4, 5 people at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can do it one at a time. You can do it on different days, one at a time. But they do have to accommodate you on that. As again, as long the key word is reasonable, and virtually everything you ask for is reasonable. By the way, I think what'll happen is the company will be very afraid to risk a EEOC complaint, lawsuit, and risk getting a bad reputation from that. So yeah, you can do that. I definitely encourage everyone to do that. Absolutely.
Okay, actually, another thing,
Go
and it's all
ahead.
right if you don't have an answer to this. I was just kind of thinking about it. Well, I'm sure as we all know, unfortunately, like women and specifically women of color are always going to have a harder time having their neurodiversity and learning disabilities understood and taken seriously,
Mhm.
especially in the workforce. So I was wondering if you saw anything in your research that could be like pertaining to that.
I have actually. So far, I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot more women getting told that they have neurodivergent
Yeah.
conditions. I'm seeing a lot of research that's saying that neurodivergent women are being successful. It is very difficult to determine if the conditions, by the way, because women are conditioned to be more social. That's the stereotype. Sorry, but I know the number of trained professionals have gotten a lot higher. My wife is able to determine if a woman is autistic or has a neurodivergent condition.
Yeah.
She had to learn from me first, actually, the way about autism because she really didn't know when I first met her. She wasn't fully aware of it, and for many people, they go back to the 1980s where autism, let's say, was considered nonverbal. That was the only version of it, and now it's just such a wide thing. But yes, women are becoming more informed about it. They're getting more aware of it, and you're absolutely right about people of color because what happens, and this applies to males, both men and women, what happens is people of color are told that they're problematic in
Yeah.
school. They're told they're troublemakers. And the truth is they may be autistic or have ADHD or whatever. And that's something that I actually stand behind because I think that people need to be better educated. Yes, this is not just a white man's problem. It's
Yeah.
everybody. 1 in 5. That's all you need to know. You either know somebody or you may have the condition and not even know it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a great question. I appreciate it. I think that was actually I really appreciate that because I think it's important for women to be aware of that. Yes, you too may have these conditions, and I've encountered plenty of autistic women on LinkedIn and on Upnotch who are doing very well. One of the interesting things is I think once a woman, I think the women I encounter there are able to be more outspoken about it. I think that again, masking is an issue.
Yeah.
You have to hide. You feel like you have to hide behind something. You have to fit in, and you know what? I disagree with that. I say you got to be you. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you go out and you tell your manager off or anything like that. No, but I'm saying, if, let's say, for example, the hands are flapping a little bit, that happens to me. I have a stimming technique that nobody knows about. I take my right leg and tuck it underneath my left. And I do this all the time when I'm typing or I'm looking at a computer, nobody sees it. So yeah, I totally get it. I think I think the number of women getting informed about these conditions are much higher than they were even 10 years ago because
Yes.
I was seeing even 15 years ago, I was seeing maybe 1 or 2 women in a group. Again, I had one of my dearest friends was the woman who had the JD and the PhD. So yeah, so um, Yeah, people are getting more aware of it. They're getting more informed, and I encourage everyone to be more informed about it. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Ask a professional. Ask people who you know in the community who are neurodivergent, and they'll be happy to work with you. They're happy to point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh,
Laura.
hi, Laura. Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Two things. My nephew is on the spectrum, and in school they geared him towards computers.
Mm-hmm.
My son was also diagnosed. He's on the spectrum 12 years ago.
Okay,
So my question is twofold, and I apologize for looking away. I wanted to write it down.
that's fine.
As a mom, it's very hard to try not to catch him when he falls. He's 21. He's at Seton Hall now. Very smart, on almost a full academic scholarship. Had an IEP in school and a 50 and the 504, I believe,
Okay.
if I got it right. And then he has nothing at Seton Hall now. So as a mom and someone who wishes to go into work with this population and the high school age, because we had such difficulty finding him a therapist, that inspired me to go back to school.
Cool.
Any advice for both wearing the mom hat and wearing a social worker's hat with
Well, my
working
mother,
with this
I
population?
I can tell you, my mother, knew nothing in the 80s as far as what my conditions were. 70s and 80s, there was no information. I can tell you that once she found out, she had to learn, and I actually was the one who had to teach. Um, I think as far as every mother's the same way. They don't want their children to fall, and every mother's the same like that. I get it. Being at Seton Hall, congratulations. I think that's a great school. I think that's a great accomplishment going from an IEP situation to a Seton Hall. Now, not every neurodivergent student's going to have an IEP though. I mean, I can tell you, I went to probably the top public school in New York City at the time. So I was in high school. I didn't know I was autistic. I had no idea until 2003. So, but now the good thing is there's so much information out there. I think first up, if your son hasn't met with the Office of Disability Services yet, definitely make that stop. Definitely make that happen because I think that's a good opportunity. I think he should. I think finding a good therapist is not easy. I'd say Spectrum Services in New York City is a great place to go through. They offer services for neurodivergent individuals. It's on 33rd Street, so right by, you can easily get there from, South Orange. You go into Penn Station, walk right over. A little bit on the expensive side, but I gotta tell you, the value is incredible. If they can't help you, they will point you in the right direction towards somebody closer to the school. I think the schools are better than they were as far as finding therapists, but I think it's not easy. I think this is I think part of it also, he has to act as his own advocate. I think that's important. You need to be um, you can watch your son and you can help your son, but your son's got to make decisions for himself. He's in college. He can handle that. He can do so much with what he's doing. What's he studying, by the way, if I may ask?
He wants to be a teacher. And then once he gets into the teaching profession, he wants to apply to the weekend program at Seton Hall Law.
Okay. Okay, that's great. That would make he wants to go into law school. That'd be only the third autistic or neurodivergent attorney I would know. Actually, no, I'm sorry, there is another one I know in the United States that I've connected with. I apologize, but I think encourage your son to pursue his goals. That's the first thing. Have him go through Office of Disability Services. Tell him, hey, listen, I'm neurodivergent. I have, I have it. This is what I might need. This is what I might need help with. If there are issues with, let's say, handling group projects, like I mentioned with my situation, that's one where that's one where a lot of us have an issue with. I think I think there are plenty of options out. I think you can go through Spectrum Services. They're in, like I said, 33rd Street, and I think they're a great option for neurodivergent people who are, and especially in their early 20s, because they can also do socialization programs. They can do social skills things. I don't know what the extent of your son's condition is, but I'm happy to see that he's so ambitious. I think that's important, because you can't, one thing I don't like is people trying to tell other people that they can't do certain things because they're neurodivergent. And I say, no, that's incorrect. That's the wrong attitude. That needs to change. I think you can achieve. I think with the right supports, anybody can achieve. I believe in that. I totally believe in that. But yeah, I think that's your best bet. Have him go to Spectrum Services. If that doesn't work out, they can connect him to somebody closer to school. And I think Seton Hall is a great school to be at. Really, 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 you should be proud of your son for getting there and doing what he's doing. I got a couple more questions in the text. I'm going to answer them. First, there are schools at the high school level that design themselves around learning disabilities and neurodivergent. Outside disability offices, am I aware of specialized schools at the college level? I know of one. I believe there's one. I have to look up. I think it's Landmark College. Don't hold me to it. But as far as neurodiversity, not that I'm aware of. Some schools are better than others with neurodiversity. I can tell you Rutgers. I can tell you Drexel, Hunter College, even the City University as a whole is great with that. I think they all have programs that help, and they help build confidence, build social structure, help build friendships, help guide them in the classroom and get through the classes. But I think but as far as schools directly geared towards neurodivergent people, sorry, I don't know of any in the United States. There might be outside the United States, though. The follow-up question, is there a service that's sort of like an aid for people with ADD or neurodivergent or another condition that affects tasks like organization, time management, focus? There are life coaches. I know that you can go through a life coach that can help work with you on different points on how to help make things happen. I know that that's a great, I know that I've worked with such a coach. Matter of fact, it was funny. When I got interviewed in 2015, the day before I was asked to do an interview, I was talking to my job coach, and she asked me, have you ever thought about telling a story? And I said, yeah, sure. And next day I get contacted, they want to tell a story. And it was totally coincidental, it turns out. It was not something where she knew about it and nobody knew that was coming. But it was something where, so yeah, there are, I would say, a life coach, a job coach. There are life coaches who specialize in neurodiversity. I can tell you that. There are plenty of opportunities. Let's see. There are resources, shadow TAs, and help students focus in class, but I've found it difficult to find an equivalent when I'm a young adult in grad school or working. Yeah, I definitely say life coach would be your best bet. There are plenty that specialize on that. I think it's a great point, though. Those are great questions. I thank you so much for those. Are there any further questions? Hi.
Oh, sorry, I have to get going because I have a small child, but I just want
That's
to thank
fine.
you so much. I
Yeah, my
really
pleasure.
appreciate this whole presentation and
My
your
pleasure.
sharing.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. Best to
Thank
all
you.
of you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
Is it 6 o'clock? Should we wrap up?
It's 6:12, so I think we can wrap up now.
Yeah.
I want to thank you all for coming. Once again, I can be reached on my LinkedIn profile. Type in William Hughes. If you find the one that looks like me, it says CRM data steward, Stradley Ronan, PhD student in global leadership at Indiana Tech, and then the third part is if autism is on the spectrum, so our talents, then so our talents, that's me. You can also reach me at whughes@stradley.com. And I really want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate you so much for taking the time. And I look forward to talking to you all in the future. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Where's the stuff here?